My name is Martin Keller, and if you had asked me a year ago whether heaven or hell existed, I would have given you the same answer every engineer gives when he doesn't want to offend anyone. I believe in facts, not feelings, not faith, not ancient stories meant to comfort frightened people. I am 42 years old, born and raised in Hamburg, Germany, a mechanical engineer by profession. I spend my days designing robotic systems and my nights reading research papers. My mind has always been wired toward logic, structure, and things that can be measured. Ironically, the only irrational fascination I ever had was with ancient mysteries, giants, lost civilizations, forbidden archaeology. Not because I believed any of it, no, only because it was interesting mythology, nothing more. So when people talked about the Nephilim, the giants mentioned in the Bible, I always assumed they were a poetic exaggeration, a metaphor for powerful kings or ancient warlords. Nothing supernatural, nothing spiritual. At least, that is what I believed until the night my world ended. It began on an ordinary Thursday. I had been working for more than 10 hours straight, analyzing a robotic joint malfunction. My head was pounding, but I thought it was just exhaustion. Germans are stubborn when it comes to work, we just keep going. At around 11:47 p.m., I stood up from my desk, and a sharp, electrifying pain shot through the left side of my skull. My vision blurred. My legs gave out. I collapsed to the floor, unable to move, unable to speak. I remember thinking, very calmly, this is a stroke. And then, I hope my neighbor hears me fall. But she didn't. My body lay motionless. My breathing slowed. My heartbeat became a distant echo. And then something happened that no scientific theory can explain. I opened my eyes, but I wasn't on the floor anymore. I was above my body, looking down at myself like an observer, watching a stranger. There was no emotion, only confusion. No pain, no fear. Just an eerie, weightless silence. I tried to rationalize. A hallucination, oxygen deprivation, a neurological misfire. But before I could finish the thought, the room darkened. Not the light, but the air itself, as if something was drawing all warmth out of it. A vibration began. Low, deep, ancient. It wasn't sound, it was more like a presence humming. Then I heard it. A voice. Not human. Not male. Not female. Just a resonance, speaking in a language I had never heard before. Yet somehow understood. You are summoned. Summoned? By what? By whom? Before I could react, a violent force pulled me backward faster than falling, faster than freefall, as if I were being dragged through a tunnel made of pure darkness. I tried to scream, but I had no mouth. I tried to struggle, but I had no body. All I could do was witness. The tunnel twisted like a living creature, swallowing all light, all sound, all reason. The deeper I went, the colder everything became, not the cold of winter, but the cold of something that has never known warmth. And then, a violent impact. I hit the ground hard. I was no longer weightless, no longer floating. I was standing in a vast ash-covered valley where the air itself felt heavy and ancient. At first, I thought my vision was still blurred, but then I realized what I was seeing. Footprints. Enormous footprints, each one as long as a car, burned into the stone as if something unimaginably heavy had walked there. My rational mind shut down. This was not a hallucination. This was not a dream. This was not a metaphor in some ancient text. Something real, something massive, something ancient had walked here, and then I felt it. The ground beneath my feet trembled. A second tremor, a third, slow, rhythmic, heavy, not an earthquake. Footsteps, coming closer. I turned toward the sound, and I saw a shadow the size of a building move behind the stone pillars. Then another. My breath vanished. My heart, whatever remained of it, froze. Because in that moment, I understood something with a clarity sharper than any scientific formula. I was not alone. And whatever was walking toward me was not human. The first thing I noticed was the air. It felt thick, as if I were breathing through dust and ancient memories. Every inhale scraped like sandpaper along my lungs, if they were even lungs anymore. The sky above me was a swirling gray, not like clouds, but like smoke trapped under a ceiling, unable to rise. The ground stretched endlessly, cracked like dried blood, and scattered with stones that looked as though they had been scorched from the inside. But none of that mattered compared to the thing that made my stomach turn. Those footprints. I knelt down beside one, my hand trembling as I placed it on the edge. It wasn't a footprint. It was a crater, pressed so deeply into solid volcanic rock that only something impossibly heavy could have created it. The toes were long, too long, not human, not even close. As an engineer, I have spent years calculating weight distribution, load-bearing limits, force impact. My mind involuntarily began estimating the mass required to create a crater like the one before me. And then I stopped. Because whatever number I came up with didn't make sense for anything that should exist. A cold realization washed over me. If whatever made these prints is still here, I am standing in its territory. The ground trembled again. This time, the vibrations were stronger, deep enough that I felt them echoing through my bones. They came in intervals, steady, purposeful, footsteps. But these were not the footsteps of one creature. There were multiple, moving in different directions, each one like thunder wrapped in muscle. I scanned the horizon, my pulse quickening, though I had no physical heart to explain the sensation. The valley was enormous, surrounded by jagged stone pillars that reached up like broken teeth. Shadows shifted between them, massive shadows moving with the slow, deliberate confidence of predators that had never, in their entire existence, known fear. I tried to step backward, but the moment my foot moved, the atmosphere changed. It was subtle at first, like air pressure dropping before a storm. Then it intensified, pressing against my chest like a weight. Something noticed me. I didn't hear it. I felt it. A gaze without eyes. A presence without a face. Watching, studying, measuring. A chilling thought cut through my mind. I am prey here. Then in the distance I saw the first shape. Not fully, only a silhouette shifting behind a pillar. But the size of the pillar itself made my blood run cold. It stood nearly 20 meters tall. And yet, the shadow behind it was larger. The footsteps grew louder. Thud, thud, thud. A second shadow joined the first, merging into something enormous. The ground cracked under its weight. Dust rose with every step. And then, as if responding to their massive presence, a sound echoed across the valley. A low, guttural rumble. Not quite a roar. Not quite speech. Something between thunder and breath. I instinctively stumbled backward, but froze when I noticed something else nearby. A smaller creature crouched near a cracked stone slab. Small relative to the giants, but still larger than any man. Its skin was leathery, its posture twisted, its eyes sunken. It looked like the closest thing to a demon I had ever imagined. But here is what paralyzed me. The creature dropped to its knees. Not to me. To what was coming behind the pillars. It was bowing. Its head pressed fully to the ground, trembling violently, as though terrified to raise its eyes. For a demon to bow. Whatever it was bowing to had to be higher in hierarchy, older in authority, and darker in nature. A voice broke across the valley. Deep, ancient, layered, as if spoken from multiple mouths at once. Silence. The demon froze completely. So did I. The shadows shifted again, this time stepping beyond the pillars. What emerged was not a creature I could understand. Not yet fully visible, only hints. A shoulder that looked like a cliff wall. A hand the size of a human tombstone. Movements heavy enough to shake the ground. My rational mind cracked. Nothing in nature moves that way. Nothing on earth was ever built to hold something like that. This was not evolution. This was not myth. This was not imagination. This was ancient, pre-flood, pre-civilization. My lungs tightened as a single horrifying truth echoed through my mind. I have entered the realm where the Nephilim fell, and something, one of them, was coming straight toward me. The first thing I saw was its hand. It emerged from behind the stone pillar, massive, dark, and cracked like volcanic rock under pressure. Each finger looked like a pillar on its own, thick and jagged, with faint red veins glowing beneath the surface like cooling magma. When it touched the ground, the stone buckled under its weight. Not cracked, buckled, as if bowing to the force pressed against it. Then the rest of the creature stepped forward. I had never understood what the word colossal truly meant until that moment. This being towered above me, easily 7, perhaps 8 meters tall. Its chest was broad and scarred, its shoulders wide enough to block out the smoky sky. But its face, God help me, its face was carved with ancient hatred. Not in expression, but in presence. The eyes glowed a molten gold, swirling like liquid metal. Not warm, not alive, just burning with a cold intelligence that had existed before my entire species had taken its first breath. The demon on the ground trembled even harder, its head pressed so deeply into the dirt that its skull seemed to sink into it. It refused to look up. Then the giant moved. Not fast, not slow, just inevitable. Each step a death sentence delivered by gravity. Thud, thud, thud. When it stopped before me, I felt the air compress. My chest tightened. My vision blurred for a moment. Not from fear, though there was plenty of that, but from the sheer pressure of its presence. It didn't open its mouth, but I heard it. I heard its voice inside my skull, vibrating through bone and marrow like a shuddering echo. Son of Adam, why have you come here? The words didn't sound like speech. They felt like judgment. My knees nearly buckled. I staggered backward, unable to answer, unable to think. My mind raced with every scientific theory, every explanation, but none fit into the reality standing before me. I forced myself to swallow, my voice cracking as I tried to speak. I don't know where I am. I don't know how I got here. The giant tilted its head, studying me the way a predator studies an unfamiliar animal. Its eyes narrowed, and the ground beneath us trembled. You lie. The words slammed into me like a physical blow. A ringing filled my ears. My vision pulsed. I felt as if a part of my consciousness had been crushed under its accusation. The Nephilim lowered itself slightly, its face coming closer, close enough that I could feel heat radiating from its skin, heat that belonged not to life, but to fire trapped beneath stone. Your kind always lies. I tried to step back, but its gaze pinned me in place. Then it did something that froze every muscle in my body. It smiled, but its smile wasn't human. It wasn't warm. It was ancient mockery, stretching across a face designed for war, not emotion. You walk the ground of our imprisonment, it said, its voice echoing both inside and around me. And yet you pretend ignorance. My breathing grew shallow. But what are you? I whispered. The giant's smile faded. Its eyes darkened like an eclipse passing over molten metal. And then the valley shook as it pronounced its name. Not a personal name, but an identity. We are the Rephaim, the Nephilim, the fallen offspring. Each word hit like a cannon blast. I stepped back instinctively, but it stepped forward, matching me. We were mighty on the earth. We were kings before your kind crawled out of the dust. Its voice deepened, vibrating through the landscape. And now, we are forgotten. For the first time, I sensed not just hatred, but an ancient wound. Still, its rage overshadowed everything else. The Nephilim leaned close, so close I could see every crack in its stone-like skin. Do you know why we hate you? I couldn't answer. It didn't wait. With a rumble that shook the valley, it whispered, because your God destroyed us and chose you. The words dripped with venom. Weak, fragile, inferior creatures chosen over us. The air grew heavier. The sky darkened further. I felt something pressing against my mind, something trying to force its way into my thoughts. The Nephilim's eyes hardened. Humans stole the world we were made to rule. Then it straightened to its full height, and the ground split beneath its feet. For this, it raised one colossal hand toward me. We hate you. For a long moment, the giant said nothing. It simply stared at me, an ancient, burning gaze that made the valley feel smaller, the air colder, and my own existence painfully insignificant. I had never felt so small. Not as a man, not as an engineer, not even as a living being. I felt like an accident of creation, standing before something that believed it was the original blueprint. The Nephilim's chest rose and fell slowly, each breath like the shifting of mountains. Then its voice returned. Not a roar, not a whisper, but a judgment laid across centuries. The world you know is returning to the age we once ruled. A slow, rumbling crack rolled across the valley as the giant spread its arms, not in grandeur, but in bitter memory. In the beginning, it said, the sons of heaven walked among the daughters of men. We were born of their union, mighty, feared, revered. It looked up as if seeing a sky I could not. We illuminated knowledge. We built cities that defied the mountains. We taught the secrets of war and the sciences of the heavens. The ground pulsed beneath us, as if the valley itself remembered. But your God, it growled, hated what we became. I felt the temperature drop. the air thinning like the atmosphere tearing open. He drowned the world. The word drowned echoed infinitely, as though still sinking through the ocean depths. Our bodies died. Its eyes darkened. Our spirits were chained. It slammed its massive fist into the earth. The valley split open in a jagged line stretching miles across the landscape. Molten light glowed beneath the cracks like the world was bleeding fire. But the time of our influence has returned. I felt that sentence more than I heard it. It sank into my chest like a cold knife. The Nephilim lowered its head toward me, and for a moment its voice softened not in mercy, but in certainty. In your world, pride is celebrated. Images flickered in the air, not visions, memories from Earth. Crowds cheering for power, fame, dominance. Influencers worshipped like deities. Children raised on rebellion. Men boasting of wickedness. Governments lifting sin like a banner. The giant continued. Violence is your entertainment. Defiance is your virtue. Corruption is your pride. The images changed. Screens flashing with chaos, riots, obscene trends, false spirituality, self-worship. The Nephilim smiled. A terrible, triumphant smile. These things were ours. It raised its hand, and another wave of imagery ignited. Political leaders speaking with uncanny charisma. Celebrities moving crowds, like puppets. Companies using symbols older than civilization. Technology evolving at a speed that felt unnatural. Your world believes it is progressing, the giant said, the fire in its eyes swirling. But it is returning. The words shook me. Returning to what? I whispered. The giant's answer chilled the marrow of my soul. To the days of Noah. It leaned closer, the heat of its breath searing the air between us. The rebellion of mankind, the corruption of flesh, the worship of giants. Its voice thundered, all arising again. The images parted, revealing a final vision. A world drowning not in water, but in darkness, arrogance, and spiritual blindness. The Nephilim extended one finger toward me, the weight of its presence nearly crushing. Your kind thinks you control your future, it hissed. But we, the forgotten ones, shape your age from the shadows. Then its voice dropped into a whisper so dark, so venomous, that my soul recoiled. When the last age arrives, mankind will not fear us. They will admire us again. My entire body trembled as the giant straightened to its full height. Your world prepares itself for our return. And you, its eyes bored into mine, are already part of the corruption. A chill raced down my spine. What do you mean? I asked. The giant's answer was immediate, merciless. You carry our spirit without knowing. The air collapsed around me. The sky dimmed, and the valley began to shake violently, reacting to the accusation. My breath hitched. My mind fractured. Because deep inside, a part of me already knew. The giant was telling the truth. For a moment, everything went silent. No footsteps, no rumbling, no shifting shadows. Just silence heavy, suffocating, unnatural. The Nephilim stood tall above me, its golden eyes narrowing as if peeling back layers of my mind. I felt it searching me, not physically, but spiritually, probing places I didn't know existed. Then with a slow, rumbling exhale, it spoke. You admire us. The words struck me like a physical blow. I don't, I stammered, stepping back instinctively. I never believed you existed. The valley trembled as the giant slammed its palm onto the ground, sending a shockwave through the ash-covered stone. Belief is irrelevant. Its voice boomed inside my skull. Your admiration is truth. I shook my head violently. No, I only studied myths. I read theories. It was curiosity, not worship. The giant leaned closer, lowering itself until its face hovered just above mine. Its breath felt like heat radiating from a furnace trapped beneath stone. Curiosity, it said, becomes reverence when it feeds pride. My stomach tightened. The Nephilim's next words cut straight into the core of who I was. You believed yourself superior because of logic. Another step closer. You believed emotion was weakness. The ground cracked beneath its feet. You believed knowledge made you above others. My breathing faltered. It wasn't wrong. Pride wasn't something I confessed, but something I lived. The giant continued, its voice wrapping around me like chains. This pride, its eyes darkened, is our image in you. My legs nearly collapsed. I stumbled backward, shaking uncontrollably. No, I whispered. That's not who I am. But inside, something twisted. A truth I had always ignored. I did admire power. I did admire what the world called greatness. I did admire what made men feel above others. The Nephilim sensed the crack in my defenses and pressed deeper. Your fascination with forbidden things, your hunger for knowledge that elevates you, your rejection of God, these are our marks upon your soul. My mouth went dry as fear surged through me, pure, primal fear I had never felt before. The giant rose to its full height, towering like a mountain ready to fall. You are not like your God. Its voice shook the valley. You are like us. The ground began to split beneath my feet, small cracks at first, then widening rapidly. Fiery light flickered beneath the stone, illuminating the valley with an eerie red glow. I staggered backward as the earth crumbled into a jagged pit. Stop, please stop, I shouted. But the giant stepped forward, its shadow swallowing me. There is no stopping judgment. The ground split wider. The heat surged upward. The air turned sharp, metallic, burning my throat. I lost my balance and fell backward toward the glowing fissure. And then, the Nephilim reached out. A massive hand, shaped like carved granite, slammed down beside me, trapping me in place. Its fingers curled slightly, ready to drag me into the fiery depth opening beneath us. I felt its hatred like a grip around my soul. You belong with us, it growled. No, I screamed. God, please help me. The moment the word God left my mouth, everything changed. The valley shook violently. The ground exploded with blinding white light. The Nephilim jerked backward, roaring in pain. A roar that shattered the stones around us. It covered its eyes, stumbling like a creature struck by a force older and stronger than itself. A voice entered the valley. Not thunder, not wind, not echo. A voice like rushing waters and living fire. Mercy comes to those who call. The light intensified, enveloping me. Warmth, real warmth, unlike anything I had felt here, wrapped around my body. The fissures beneath me sealed shut. The ground stabilized. The valley dimmed under the brilliance. The Nephilim screamed again, a sound of unbearable rage and terror. He is mine, it roared. He carries our spirit. The voice of light answered. He carries what he chooses. And then I was lifted, not by hands, not by wings, but by presence, by purity, by a force that radiated truth so strong it dissolved every lie I had ever lived. As I rose, the Nephilim lunged, its enormous hand reaching toward me with desperate fury. But the light repelled it like a wall. Its final words followed me as I ascended from the valley. You cannot escape what is coming to your world. And then, darkness collapsed. Light expanded. Sound vanished. I gasped awake. Cold air filled my lungs. Bright lights blurred into hospital white. Voices shouted around me. Machines beeped violently. I was back. I was alive. But the nightmare had not ended. Because the Nephilim's prophecy still echoed in my mind, burning like a truth I could not unhear. When I opened my eyes in the hospital, everything felt wrong. The lights were too bright. The air was too clean. The voices around me were too normal, too human, too small. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Not because my throat was weak, but because I didn't know which reality I belonged to anymore. A nurse leaned over me, shouting something about vitals stabilizing. Another voice called for a doctor. Someone said I had been gone for nearly 4 minutes. 4 minutes. To them, it was a medical emergency. To me, it had been a lifetime. As the shock faded, something else settled into my chest. A weight, a heaviness. The memory of a presence so ancient, it made the hospital room feel like a fragile illusion. I lay there silently, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail. The footprints, the shadows, the valley of ash, the giant's molten eyes, its voice in my skull, its hatred, not wild, not chaotic, but deliberate, cold, justified in its own twisted logic. And worst of all, its prophecy. For days, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it whisper, "The days of Noah will return." At first, I thought it was trauma, a psychological echo of fear. I tried to explain it away with medical terminology, neurological patterns, hypoxia-induced hallucinations, but the problem was this. The more I tried to rationalize the experience, the more impossible it became to dismiss, because what I had seen, what I had felt, was not a hallucination. Hallucinations do not have weight. They do not shake the ground. They do not impose hierarchy among demons. They do not speak in languages older than civilization, and they do not drag you toward a pit that feels all too real. No, what I encountered was not a dream. It was a realm, a prison, a place where ancient spirits, once worshipped as gods and feared as giants, still exist, still hate, and still hunger for influence. I remember sitting upright in my hospital bed, my hands trembling as I whispered to myself, I saw the Nephilim. The word alone felt dangerous, forbidden, like a truth buried under centuries of denial. For weeks after returning home, I could not function normally. I stopped working. I stopped socializing. I stopped pretending that the world was what I had once believed it to be. Because the Nephilim had told me something that has not left my mind for a single day since. Your world prepares itself for our return. At first, I didn't understand what it meant, but slowly, painfully, I began to see it. The arrogance celebrated in society, the hunger for power at all costs, the glorification of sin, the obsession with self-worship, the pride that blinds entire nations, the violent entertainment, the spiritual apathy, the rejection of truth. It is the same corruption described before the flood of Noah. A return to the age of rebellion, a world shaped increasingly, not by humility or conscience, but by the ancient spirit of dominance, the same spirit the Nephilim accused me of carrying. And that accusation still haunts me. Because the giant wasn't wrong, not entirely. I was proud. I was arrogant. I did admire strength without morality. I did believe intelligence made me superior. That is the part of the testimony I hate admitting. It is the part that makes people uncomfortable, but it is also the part that matters most. The Nephilim wasn't simply trying to destroy me. It was revealing something. Humanity is becoming like them again, not in body, but in mind, in spirit, in culture, in behavior. And that is why I speak now. Not to scare, not to sensationalize, not to impress anyone, but because I cannot stay silent. Because I saw something no human should see. Because I heard a prophecy older than civilization. Because I stood in the valley where giants fell, and they are not resting. They are raging. If there is one thing I want the world to understand, it is this. Hell is real. The Nephilim are real, and their hatred did not die in the flood. I do not claim to be a prophet. I am not a preacher. I am not a spiritual authority. I am simply a man who had all his unbelief burned away in a place where truth is unavoidable. And the truth is simple. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be again. The giants are gone, but their influence, their arrogance, their corruption is already here. I saw the Nephilim in hell, and I returned with one message. Humanity is repeating history, and this time, we are doing it willingly.